How many times do I have to tell you? I need to rest to protect our baby. I'm 8 months pregnant and there's a risk of premature labor, so I have to stay on bed rest. This is a small, precious life that could be born at any moment. But when I try to lie down and rest, my husband says, "Pregnancy isn't an illness, so don't slack off with the housework." His harsh words didn't stop there. When I turned around, I saw his face turn pale in an instant. What did he see? My name is Melanie. I live in a small apartment with my husband, Ken. But soon, our life as just the two of us will come to an end. There's a new life growing inside me, and I'm now 8 months pregnant. When I first found out I was pregnant, I couldn't believe it. Joy and disbelief overwhelmed me, and I couldn't sleep at night. Every day, our baby was growing little by little inside me. The first time I saw its tiny heart beating during an ultrasound, tears fell from my eyes. The heartbeat of that tiny life felt like a new rhythm in my life, like a drumbeat filling my days with new hope. But as the pregnancy progressed, I found myself struggling with the changes in my body. There were days when I wondered when the morning sickness would finally end. My belly grew so big that I couldn't wear the clothes I liked anymore. But when I thought about the baby being born safely, these struggles seemed trivial. Giving birth is a major milestone in life. I believe this experience will strengthen the bond between Ken and me. I sincerely hope our precious child will come into this world safely. Now, I just cherish each day, waiting for that important moment to arrive. I met my husband in high school. He was the most popular boy in class, and it was easy to see why. He always made everyone smile, and he was kind to everyone. I still vividly remember the first time we talked. "Melanie, can you help me with this math problem?" he asked, coming over to my seat. That was our first conversation. He seemed capable of doing anything, but he apparently had some trouble with studying. When I carefully explained how to solve the problem, he beamed and said, "Thanks, Melanie. You really helped me." I was captivated by his smile. As time passed, we went from being just classmates to confiding in each other. Even after we went to college, we made time on weekends to talk about our studies and future dreams. He always listened to me seriously, sometimes giving me tough advice, but that was part of his charm. However, life after marriage turned out to be tougher than I had imagined. Especially after I found out I was pregnant, my health deteriorated, making it hard to keep working. At first, Ken was worried about me, but gradually, he began urging me to quit so he could focus on work. Our household chores were supposed to be shared from the beginning, with the person who noticed something needed doing taking care of it, as my husband suggested. At first, this freedom felt refreshing, and we adapted to the style of taking responsibility for what we noticed. But things didn't go as smoothly as expected. In reality, I ended up doing most of the chores. "Ken, the laundry is piling up. Can you take care of it today?" I suggested one day. The laundry had piled up into a mountain, and it was too much for me to handle alone. "Yeah, just a moment. Let me finish this work email first," he replied without looking up from his computer. I knew that just a moment could last indefinitely. As time went on, his idea of whoever notices does it gradually turned into pretending not to notice. I couldn't help but feel that he had intended this from the start. Even when he hung the laundry, he rarely helped fold it. When I asked him to help fold the laundry, his usual response was, "Yeah, I got it, but I'm a bit busy right now, so I'll do it later." The later that rarely came left me increasingly frustrated. I sighed countless times. One evening, when he came home, I decided to talk to him about sharing the chores. I sat down in the living room where he was eating and looked at him seriously. No, I might have been glaring at him. "I need to talk to you about the chores. It's starting to get a bit overwhelming. Maybe we should rethink how we divide the work." He looked a little surprised and said, "Has it been that bad? But we agreed when we got married that whoever notices should do it, right?" It's been tough because I've ended up doing almost everything, I said, no longer angry, just tired. I think we should set more concrete rules so that it's a bit easier for both of us, I added carefully. I really wanted to say, you need to pull your weight, but I held back. After a moment of silence, he sighed and said, Fine, if you want rules, let's make them. His tone was condescending. To be honest, I'm so busy with work that I can't handle everything at home too. I'm willing to share more, but it has to be within what I can do, he continued. I didn't like how he said it, but I reluctantly agreed. That night, we made a detailed list of chores and decided who would be responsible for what. But as expected, the new rules didn't last long. They only revealed that he was a man of empty promises. I understood that his work was busy, but as the days passed without him making any effort to keep his promises, my disappointment grew. Ken, you forgot to take out the trash. Oh, sorry, I forgot. But I'm really tired today, so can you take it out tomorrow morning? In that moment, something snapped inside me. To him, chores were something I did, and he only helped when it was convenient. After venting like this, people often ask me why I married such a man. Before we got married, he was a kind and thoughtful gentleman who always cared about those around him. He would buy me my favorite flowers on our dates and offer me his hand as we walked, just like in movies. But after we got married, he changed completely, like a different person. Once he had me, his considerate behavior vanished, revealing his true self, someone who didn't bother to keep up the pretense. A year into our marriage, I started losing my appetite and feeling feverish. At first, I thought it was just a cold and didn't pay much attention. I had no time to rest at home, constantly busy with chores and my husband's demands. But my condition only worsened, making it a struggle to get through the daily chores. One day, while cooking, I was suddenly overcome with nausea and almost collapsed on the floor. Even then, my husband was in the living room watching TV, ignoring my suffering. Can you help me? I called out weakly. He reluctantly turned off the TV and coldly asked, What's wrong? Are you sick? I'm feeling nauseous. I need to lie down for a bit. Can you take care of dinner? But his face showed clear displeasure. Why do I need to do that? Just because you're sick doesn't mean you should drag me into it. His angry words made me want to cry, but I held back my tears and somehow managed to support myself as I returned to my room. That night, he came back from eating out without saying a word, and there was nothing for me. The days felt increasingly empty. One morning, the smell of my favorite food made me feel nauseous. Instead, I had a strange craving for fast food fries, which I normally didn't eat. This inexplicable symptom made me suspect something. Could it be? I wondered as I headed to the pharmacy to buy a pregnancy test. When I got home and took the test in the bathroom, it clearly showed positive. I was pregnant. I regretted not realizing sooner because of my irregular periods, but discovering this new life filled me with complex emotions. That night, I decided to tell my husband. I need to talk to you. It's important. I started, trying to sound calm. What is it? If it's about divorce, I'm not doing it. I thought to myself, if I could, I would have already left. With that thought in mind, I sat across from him at the table and cautiously said, Ken, I'm pregnant. His reaction was unexpected. No way! Really? That's awesome! He exclaimed, his face lighting up with a big smile. Seeing him so happy made me let out a sigh of relief. Is it a boy or a girl? He asked excitedly, firing off questions. I don't know yet, I replied with a smile. If it's a boy, I'll teach him baseball. If it's a girl, maybe piano lessons. He continued, already planning our child's future. His enthusiasm was so surprising that I wondered if he had hit his head or something. Are you really that happy? I asked, looking into his eyes.
Of course. From now on, it'll be the three of us. If you need anything, just tell me.
He said with a serious expression, holding my hand. His words gave me hope that maybe he would change, even a little. But that hope soon crumbled. After finding out about the pregnancy, my health rapidly declined. The morning sickness was so severe that I could barely eat or even smell anything without getting sick. I hoped that with my husband's support, it would be a little easier, but his response was far from what I expected. One day, as I lay on the living room sofa, he came home. Without even glancing at me, he went straight to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and searched for something to eat. Then he turned to me with a look of dissatisfaction.
Hey, where's my dinner? Why haven't you made anything?
He asked, his voice tinged with irritation. I'm sorry, the morning sickness is really bad today, and I couldn't move. Could you please buy something for yourself? He frowned and threw out an unbelievable remark.
Why can't you even cook a meal? Are you just being lazy?
His words made me feel nothing but sadness. It seemed he had no understanding of my suffering. The next day, I managed to drag myself to the washing machine to do laundry when he approached me.
Why are you using the dryer? It's a waste of money. Don't slack off with my money.
I'm too tired to hang them up. If it bothers you, why don't you do it? I replied, struggling to stay calm.
You're telling me this after I've come home tired from work? You've been lying down all day.
At this point, his presence felt like a bigger burden than all the piled up chores. Another day, when I told him I wanted some fries, he coldly replied,
Go get them yourself. Stop being so needy.
His disregard for my condition, prioritizing his own convenience, left me feeling completely exhausted. But what hurt the most was when he said, Your constant vomiting is making me sick. Could you do it quietly? When I heard those words, I couldn't stop crying. I wondered if this man who lacked the most basic empathy could really be my husband. Ken, can't you see how much I'm suffering? Your child is in my belly. I pleaded weakly as tears flowed.
I get it, but your vomiting is making me feel awful too.
His words crushed me, leaving me speechless. His indifference and coldness chilled my heart, making life in this household increasingly unbearable. I was so mentally and physically exhausted that I could no longer think of what to do. Even as my morning sickness finally began to subside, his attitude didn't change. He couldn't understand my situation and offered no help with daily tasks. For example, when we went shopping, I ended up carrying the heavy bags while he walked ahead, as if in a hurry. Ken, wait a second. The bags are heavy. Can you help me?
All right, but I'll go on ahead.
He replied without even looking back. Are you listening to me? What kind of person does that? I thought, feeling frustrated. Strangers, like an elderly woman or a businessman, often ended up helping me. It was the same when we went out to eat. I would tell him that I couldn't eat sushi because of the pregnancy, but he'd just say,
Well, I want to eat it. If you can't, then don't eat anything.
Sitting next to him during meals became unbearable. What made it even harder was when we shopped for baby items. We would go together, but seeing other happy couples choosing things for their babies filled me with a sense of emptiness. The store was full of cute clothes and toys, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. Hey, what do you think of this stroller? It's light and functional. Seems easy to use.
Yeah, it's fine, but it's expensive. Isn't there a cheaper one?
But it's good quality and will last a long time. I want to choose something nice for our baby. He didn't hide his irritation.
Yeah, that's why it's expensive. Let's think about it some more. Money doesn't grow on trees.
I know money isn't infinite, but this is something we'll use for years.
As long as it can carry a baby, anything will do.
On the way home that day, we hardly spoke. The car was filled with a heavy silence, and I stared blankly out the window. Thinking about how other couples seemed so excited to prepare for their baby's arrival, I felt the distance between us and couldn't stop the tears. There's something else I want to discuss.
Can't we talk about it at home?
Once we got home, I tried to bring it up again. Let's try to be more considerate of each other. Our baby is going to be born soon.
Melanie, you're just tired. You're overthinking things.
Of course I'm thinking about it. It's our first child.
That's why I'm doing things my way. Isn't that enough?
Doing things your way? How can you be so sure? This is our child. Aren't you excited? Please try to be more supportive.
But he just said, Yeah, I get it. Let's just go to bed. You're tired.
He left the room, leaving me feeling even more hopeless. Lying in bed, I wished he would change, but that hope kept fading. Unable to bear it anymore, I vented to a friend. You should just leave him. But there was a reason I couldn't. Even though he seemed indifferent, his attitude completely changed when he saw the ultrasound pictures.
Wow, is this our baby? That's amazing.
I loved seeing that sparkle in his eyes. When we found out the baby was a boy, he literally jumped for joy.
A boy! That's awesome, Melanie. I'll teach him everything I know.
But despite his excitement, his coldness and lack of understanding in daily life remained unchanged. We continued to have discussions, but I couldn't shake the hope that he might change once the baby was born. Despite the daily frustration, I decided to endure it for the sake of the baby. By the 8th month of pregnancy, my body had reached its limit. My belly was constantly tight, and I was diagnosed with a high risk of premature labor, so I was ordered to stay on bed rest. I had to reluctantly leave my job and spend my days lying down at home. My husband would look down at me with an expression I couldn't read, muttering,
Must be nice, just laying around all day.
His words hurt, but I could only ignore them. Every time I ordered delivery or dried laundry in the dryer, I could hear him saying it was a waste. He was extremely strict about finances, hating any kind of waste.
You're a housewife now, so you need to take care of the house properly.
By this point, I almost found myself wondering what ridiculous thing he'd say next. One day, as soon as he got home, he looked around the house as usual and said,
It's a mess in here. What have you been doing all day?
I'm sorry, I haven't been feeling well today. He sighed and said,
I get that you're sick, but try a little harder. I don't want to come home to this mess after a long day.
Despite everything, there were moments when he could be kind. One evening, when I was suddenly hit with severe abdominal pain, he rushed over, worried.
Hey, are you okay? Should we go to the hospital? I'll call a taxi.
His concern surprised me, and I thought maybe he still has some kindness left. I felt a bit relieved, sensing that there was still some love left in him. Thank you, but I'll be fine after a little rest.
Don't push yourself. I'm really worried,
he said, holding my hand. The warmth of his hand reminded me of the gentle husband I used to know. The next morning, before leaving for work, he asked,
Are you feeling better today?
That simple question lightened my heart so much. But those moments of kindness were short-lived. Daily life was still filled with battles over his lack of understanding. I struggled each day, caught between hoping he might change and facing the reality. Still, the thought of our child being born kept me going, believing that all the hardships would be worth it. A week before my due date, my belly became even tighter, and the doctor told me that the baby could be born any day. When I told my husband, he said,
The baby's healthy, right? Then everything's fine.
His casual attitude made me uneasy. Sure, the baby was healthy, but at the time I was terrified that the baby might be born too soon. Then something happened that finally put an end to my life with this terrible husband. That day, his awful behavior was on full display again. When I tried to warm up the delivery meal, he said, "Pregnancy isn't an illness. You don't have a 104-degree fever, so don't slack off with the housework." His words pierced my heart, but I could only endure them. Then he opened a can of beer and started drinking, which pushed my frustration to the limit.
"What do you want to drink?"
He teased, continuing to taunt me.
"Just one more month and you can have one,"
he said, turning around, but his face suddenly changed. "What's with that face?" I asked, turning around slowly. My brother, Jack, was standing behind me. He glared at my husband with an expression full of anger.
"What do you mean by just one more month?"
he asked, his voice full of fury.
Well,
My husband stammered, his voice shaking.
You also said pregnancy isn't an illness, didn't you?
Jack continued, his voice rising.
I might have said something like that, or not.
My husband muttered, terrified.
Melanie is going through a tough time right now. Yes, I'm sorry. I might have gone too far.
My husband said, now cowering in fear. My brother, still seething, wasn't done.
Might have? Really? Oh, I'm sorry. It was just a bad joke.
My husband apologized, now trembling.
This isn't time for jokes. You should be thinking more about Melanie.
My husband feared my brother not only because he was my brother, but also because my brother ran our family company. After our father passed away 7 years ago, my brother took over and has been running the company ever since. Both my husband and I worked at the company, so my brother had a close relationship with us both as family and professionally. My brother had always been protective of me, and he often checked in on how I was doing. One day, I decided to vent to my brother about my husband's behavior. He doesn't take my pregnancy seriously, I confessed to my brother. He listened intently, and he wanted to confront my husband, but I stopped him. Thank you, but if you scold Ken, it'll just make things more uncomfortable. Please, let it go, I pleaded.
You're just gonna keep getting hurt.
I just needed someone to listen. He can be so petty. It's a hassle, I explained. That day, my brother came over to check on me because he was worried about my health. The doorbell was broken and the door was unlocked, so he came inside just as my husband was saying, just one more month and you can have a drink. Hearing that, my brother couldn't contain his anger.
If you're a man, stop making excuses. Do you know how much your wife is suffering? What's with your attitude?
My brother yelled, advancing on my husband.
Oh, I'm sorry, I really am.
My husband stammered, apologizing profusely. Thank you, Jack, but it's okay now. I intervened, trying to calm the situation.
Melanie, don't put up with this. I can see how much you're struggling. You should have told me sooner.
My brother said gently, almost making me cry. After that, we sat down in the living room to talk. My brother, still angry, laid into my husband with harsh words.
I want to tell you to leave this house right now, but this is between you two. However, don't forget that you have a small life about to be born.
His words left my husband speechless.
To protect the baby, Melanie will stay at my house until she gives birth. You'll have to manage on your own,
my brother declared. The sudden turn of events left me shocked, but also relieved by my brother's words. Meanwhile, my husband was visibly shaken.
But I can't cook or do laundry. Figure it out yourself.
My brother cut him off sternly. The weight of his words left us all silent. In that moment, I felt a mix of anger and sadness toward my husband. We never thought it would come to this, did we? I said quietly to him.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know what to do.
He replied, sounding lost. I'll do what my brother says, but I know you care about the baby. You'll have to manage on your own. But until then, you need to pull yourself together, I suggested.
Thank you. I admit I've done wrong. I'll change, so please trust me,
he said, giving me a glimmer of hope. At the same time, I made a decision in my heart. This will be the last chance. If he doesn't change, I'll divorce him. I also considered raising the child on my own. The next day, I began preparing to move to my brother's house.
If you need anything, just let me know,
my brother said, his kindness deeply touching me. My husband helped me pack my things, all the while looking like he was lost in thought.
I'm really reflecting on this. I'll wait for the day you come back,
he said, leaving one final message before I left. The days at my brother's house felt like living in a completely different world. My sister-in-law, Allison's warm care brought a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. One day, while looking at the fluffy bed she had specially prepared for me, we had a deep conversation. Melanie, we're looking forward to the baby's arrival, so take your time to rest, she said, gently handing me a blanket. Her kindness always warmed my heart. Thank you so much. I want to be as considerate as you are, I said, expressing my gratitude. I've been submissive to my husband for so long, but maybe that's why I spoiled him, I confided. Allison smiled gently and said, People can change, Melanie, but sometimes you also need to be strong to protect yourself. Encouraged by her words, I strengthened my resolve. If he truly reflects and changes his ways for our sake, I'll acknowledge that. But I won't support him unconditionally anymore, I decided firmly. That resolve is important. But remember, don't be too harsh on yourself. Focus on your happiness and your baby's future, she said, offering more support. One day, I returned to our old home with Allison to pick up the rest of my things. When we opened the door, we were shocked to see the living room had turned into a trash heap. My husband was lying on the sofa, looking exhausted. What is this? It stinks. Are you okay? I asked.
I have a bit of a fever and can't move,
he replied weakly. But when we took his temperature, it was only 99 degrees, just a mild fever. Allison and I exchanged glances, both in disbelief. You don't even have a fever. This is pathetic, I said.
Hey, don't talk to a sick person like that, he protested.
Seriously? Look who's talking, I thought, feeling exasperated.
Oh, by the way, I could really use some jelly. Could you get some for me?
He asked. Why should I retorted. At least do the laundry yourself, I said, reminding him of his previous words. What was it you said to me before? Something about not slacking off unless you had a 104-degree fever? I shot back. Allison stifled a laugh and I added, Make sure the place is clean before the baby is born. With that, I left the room. Later, he sent me a desperate message asking for help, but I just replied, Don't slack off. On the way back, Allison and I had a long conversation. Melanie, you did well, but give him a chance. People can change, she said, encouraging me. I know, but I'm done spoiling him. If he really wants to change, he'll do it on his own, I replied, thinking carefully about the future as we headed home. I felt strongly that this experience was a true test and an opportunity for growth. After overcoming the threat of premature labor, the day of delivery finally arrived. I was filled with a mix of nerves and anticipation, overwhelmed by emotions. But the midwife calmly welcomed us, saying, It's gonna be okay. Let's do this together. Take a deep breath and push now, she instructed. My husband held my hand tightly, occasionally encouraging me, saying,
"You're doing great, Melanie. You can do this."
Those words were incredibly reassuring. As I fought through the pain, the midwife's voice saying, "Just a little more, you're about to meet your baby," gave me felt the strength to keep going. My husband, tense and sometimes tearful, stayed by my side, supporting me the whole time. And finally, our baby was born. "You did it! A healthy 6.6-pound baby boy!" the midwife announced. She gently placed our tiny baby on my chest. The warmth and weight of our newborn brought us immense joy, washing away all the struggles. Tears streamed down my husband's face. His expression was one of relief, as if all his worries and tension had melted away.
"Thank you so much, Melanie, for giving birth to a healthy baby,"
he said through tears, his hands trembling as he held mine tightly. As the sound of our baby's first cry filled the room, it marked the beginning of our new family. The sound resonated deeply in our hearts. "This is our baby," I said softly, and my husband nodded, smiling with teary eyes.
"Yeah, we'll support him together. I'm so proud of how strong you've been,"
he said, pulling me close and gazing at me intently.
"It's amazing that this tiny, perfect life is really ours,"
he whispered as he gently stroked the baby's tiny hand with his finger. Watching him, I realized just how much he had been waiting for this moment, and I felt truly grateful for the changes in him. Yes, our days ahead will be completely different, filled with new challenges, but we'll face them together, I told him.
He nodded, saying, "Being by your side makes me the happiest man in the world."
He quietly stroked our baby's head. That day became an unforgettable treasure for us as a couple, making a big step into our life as a family. We made a fresh commitment to support each other and raise this small new life together. Returning home from the hospital, our new life began. At first, I had some doubts about my husband's skills in taking care of the house. Sometimes he'd fall asleep before our son, exhausted from the day. He struggled to handle a knife properly or folded the laundry in a messy way. "Ken, not like that. Hold the knife this way," I said patiently, teaching him bit by bit.
"Thanks. I'm still learning, but I'm trying my best,"
he responded, showing a positive attitude.
"He's so cute, isn't he?"
my husband said lovingly, gazing at our son. Seeing him look at our son with such love, I was truly glad I didn't go through with a divorce. My husband was changing, little by little, but it was real. Through our son, he was growing too. One evening, we sat in the living room talking about our family's future. "Ken, it was tough at first, but I never expected you to work so hard," I said, impressed.
"Becoming a father has made me think about a lot of things. I want to be a better father and husband for you and our son,"
he replied. Hearing that made me happy. "Let's keep building a home full of smiles," I said.
"I promise,"
he replied, nodding firmly. From that day on, I felt that our family was steadily moving forward. The birth of our son brought new hope and joy to our marriage, and my husband's transformation was leading to happiness for our whole family.
My husband said, "My parents are not interested in their grandchildren." Then one day, mother-in-law called me.
I'm Layla, a 28-year-old housewife. My husband Tom is a company employee and we recently welcomed our long-awaited child. We're now living as a family of 3. We had a beautiful baby girl and named her Elena. She's so adorable that I could just stare at her all day.
She looks just like you when you were little, Layla. Seeing her brings back memories of when you were born.
Today I invited my parents to our house to introduce them to Elena. Tom, have your parents met her yet?
No, they haven't. Actually, my parents don't like kids. They told me they had me just because of societal expectations, but they didn't want any more kids. They're not interested in their grandchild either. When I told them about Elena, they said not to bring her until she's an adult. It's hard to believe, right?
I've met your parents a few times, but they didn't seem like that. Is it really possible to dislike children so much that they don't even want to see their own grandchild?
Maybe you could at least send them a picture? She's their first grandchild after all. As she's their first grandchild, they may see a picture. Well, yeah, I'll send them a picture. Maybe it'll change their minds. I'll try to convince them to meet her.
True to his word, my husband sent his parents a picture of Elena, hoping it would soften their hearts. However, convincing them proved difficult.
I was thinking of taking Elena to visit my parents during the next holiday.
Wow, did your parents say alright finally? It has passed almost 10 months since Elena was born. Finally, my husband's efforts bear fruits.
I'm sorry, but my parents are still against meeting her. I tried asking them to reconsider, but they just wouldn't listen. They seem stubborn about accepting her.
Oh, it's not easy to change their minds.
Sorry, Layla.
I'm just glad you're trying so hard.
But if I can't even convince my parents, I must be a terrible dad.
Whenever the topic of his parents comes up, my husband tends to blame himself. That's not true. Elena and I know how hard you're trying. You're a great dad, right, Elena? She is sleeping peacefully. Yeah, she is agreeing in her dream. We all know that you are trying hard for our family. Both of us love you, so don't say that you are not a good dad.
Thank you, Layla. I'll keep trying.
Lately, I've been getting tired of trying to cheer him up. Honestly, if his parents don't want to meet Elena, then fine, I won't force it. But since my husband is trying so hard, I can't force myself to say that out loud. And what if Elena asks one day why she can't meet her grandparents? I can't exactly tell her that they don't want to see her. As Elena's birthday approached, something unexpected happened. We received a rare phone call from my in-laws.
Layla, it's been a while.
Yes, it has. How have you been?
I'm well, thank you. How about you? Is everything going well with raising the baby?
It seemed strange that she was concerned about me, but had no interest in her grandchild.
Layla, did we do something to upset you?
No, not really. Other than not wanting to meet your granddaughter, there's been nothing wrong. I was confused as to why she was asking.
Then, why haven't you let us meet our grandchild? If it's difficult for you to come here, we can come to you. Or, if we don't want us at your house, we can reserve a private room at a restaurant. Please, let us see her, even if just once. I've been waiting for you to change your mind, but I can't bear the thought of her growing up without ever meeting us. I don't even need to hold her, just let her see her once. Please, can we at least see our grandchild? Your father and I have been so eager to meeting our first grandchild. I'm begging you, let us see our grandchild, even if it's just once.
Hearing my mother-in-law plead in tears, I was shocked. After all, wasn't it them who refused to meet her in the first place?
We'll do whatever it takes to make you comfortable with us seeing her. Just tell us what you need. If it means we can see our grandchild, we'll do anything. Please, Layla. Even after all this, are you saying you won't change your mind?
Oh no, that's not it at all. I'm totally fine with letting you meet her.
What? It seems like there's been a misunderstanding.
I explained to my mother-in-law about my conversations with Tom. It turns out Tom had told her that I didn't want to meet them. But why would he say that? Just then my mom, who had been helping with a baby, had overheard everything, suggested that I pass the phone to her.
Hello, this is Layla's mom. It's been a while.
As my mom started talking with my mother-in-law, my baby Elena began crying, so I stepped away to comfort her. When I came back, it seemed like they had reached some sort of agreement. Apparently, the moms had come up with a plan. They told me to keep it a secret from Tom until the plan was carried out, so I waited. A few days later, on Tom's day off, my parents came over for a little family get-together.
Elena just keeps getting cuter. And she's getting so good at talking too. Yeah, that's right. She's so smart. I can't believe Tom's parents don't want to meet such an adorable granddaughter. They didn't like children from before. I heard Tom has been working really hard to convince them. Good for him.
Ever since I found out that Tom had been lying to both me and my parents, I've started to doubt everything he says. It's been so frustrating, but today, it all ends. Apparently, we all seem to be having a good time, but inside, we're all nervous, waiting for the big moment. What are we waiting for, you ask? Well...
Hello?
Hi. Wait, Dad? Mom?
Yes, we were waiting for Tom's parents to arrive.
But why? For what?
We're here to see our granddaughter, of course.
Hurry up and bring her out.
But first, we need to wash our hands thoroughly. Where's the bathroom?
What?
These people, who were supposed to stay away, suddenly showed up and Tom turned pale. After lying for almost a year, I decided to play along as if I hadn't noticed anything. So, when did they change their minds? It seems like they're really eager to meeting her.
Yeah, that's right. I've been talking to them and I've finally convinced them to meet her.
Nice one, Tom. So smooth with the lies.
Layla, no matter what you say today, we're going to meet our granddaughter.
Yes, Layla, nobody can stop us. Not even you. Please, just calm down.
After thoroughly washing their hands, Tom's parents, still pretending not to know anything, came right up to me. Of course, this was all planned in advance, so I played along. I never said you couldn't see her. But what's going on? Why the sudden visit?
What? Layla, what did you say? I've been wanting to meet her so badly.
You guys are finally going to meet your granddaughter. That's all that matters now.
You guys refuse to see her just because you guys don't like kids. But then again, it's not like you even care about your granddaughter, right? You don't want to see her until she's an adult, right? It's like you don't even appreciate her existence. Tom has been working so hard to get you to meet her, but you've rejected us all this time. And now you want to meet her all of a sudden?
Tom told me you didn't want us to meet her.
Isn't it you who doesn't want us to meet her?
What? What's going on here?
Let us see her. Come on, hurry.
No way. What's really going on here? Explain yourself.
At that moment, my parents and Elena, who had been in the back room, came in.
Elena wants to meet her grandparents.
Isn't she the cutest little angel?
Oh my goodness, what an adorable angel. Is this really our granddaughter?
She's smiling.
Isn't she cute? I'm glad you got to see her. Now we can all talk together.
Tom, what is going on here? Why did you lie to both sides to prevent us from meeting Elena? You owe us a proper explanation.
It turns out that someone here thought he could keep the entire inheritance for himself if his parents were gone, but then he realized that once Elena was born, some of the inheritance might go to her. So he came up with a plan to prevent them from loving Elena so that they would leave everything to him alone. He was already thinking about inheritance, even though his parents are still alive.
Trying to come up with a plan to keep our precious granddaughter away from her grandparents for life. I can't tell if he's smart or just plain stupid.
No, he's just too evil.
No, it's not like that. I was just following my boss's advice. He's an only child and he thought he could keep the whole inheritance for himself. But then he found out that his grandchild had inheritance rights too. He was panicking, so I didn't want to end up in the same situation. And for that, you kept them from meeting her for a whole year? You should be proud of yourself, thanks to your efforts. Your parents are now eager to get that will written up. Yeah, that's right. As soon as we get home, we'll talk to a lawyer about getting a will drawn up. We'll make sure everything goes to Elena.
While you're at it, don't forget there's another document you'll need to fill out.
What's that?
The divorce papers, of course. I can't stay married to a liar who deceives everyone around him. It's only a matter of time before you try to separate me and Elena. I can't trust a single word you say.
No, please, don't do this. Mom, Dad, will you still see Elena even if Layla divorces me?
Of course we will.
We're cutting ties with you, so you don't have to worry. This can't be happening.
Even if there's a will, the inheritance might go to our son if there's a contract, so we have to take precautions now.
All right then. Elena, let's go. We're leaving.
Leaving? But this is your home.
I'm obviously going back to my parents' house. You're welcome to come too, Mom and Dad. We're getting everything ready to celebrate Elena's birthday there.
Wait, no. Don't leave me here alone.
Leaving Tom screaming behind, we headed back to my parents' house. I divorced him after that, and I got full custody of Elena. I made sure to get child support as well. After the divorce, Tom got angry at his boss for putting these ideas in his head, which led to trouble at work. He's lonely, struggling with housework, and even though he cried to his parents for help, they completely ignored him. I've heard they're planning to sell the house and move somewhere Tom won't find them. Back at my parents' house, with their help, I've been raising Elena. I landed a full-time job and things are going well. Today is Elena's second birthday, so we're throwing a party to celebrate. Of course, Tom's parents are invited.
Thank you all for coming to celebrate with us today. If I may, I'd like to propose a toast. Everyone raise your glasses.
Cheers!
Wait, Elena's only 2, right?
I've never seen a 2-year-old say something like that before.
Neither have I.
Elena loves cheers. She practiced a lot with Layla yesterday.
She did great. Surrounded by love, Elena is growing into a beautiful treasure for everyone. I wonder what kind of new and unique Layla character will appear next. Stay tuned. What you did was attempted murder. You tried to push me down the stairs and kill me along with my baby. That's attempted murder.
What? Attempted murder?
No one saw what happened. You have no proof.
I do have proof.
My name is Emma, and I'm 29 years old. I'm currently looking for a new job. My previous job was decent, but I left for a reason. Let me explain.
So tell us why you're interested in this position.
Yes, well, the reason I'm applying for this position is, at that time I was in the middle of job hunting.
That concludes the interview.
Thank you.
You have a solid educational background and clear motivation for this position, so I'm confident you'll be successful.
Really?
Yes, we expect you to start in May, so we are eager to having you.
Thank you. I'm excited to start.
By the way, would you like to grab a meal together sometime?
Excuse me?
I'd like to explain more about our company culture, and I usually invite all the new hires for a meal.
Sure, I guess. I had just been offered my dream job, so I was in high spirits and accepted the invitation. Little did I know that this was where everything would begin.
What did you do at your previous job?
I worked in retail, but the hours were just too demanding.
I see.
The dinner was mostly about work, no alcohol involved, and it ended quickly. After a while, I started my new job, and I found out that my direct supervisor was the same person who had interviewed me, John. But then, the real problem began. Rumors started spreading around the office that John and I were dating. I was furious that someone would joke about this, so I went straight to John to ask about it. Hey John, I heard some weird rumors going around about us. Do you know anything about that?
What do you mean? Of course people think we're dating. We are, aren't we?
What? The words made me shocked.
Don't you remember? You asked me out to dinner that night, and you confessed your feelings to me.
What are you talking about? I never confessed anything to you.
Come on, don't play dumb. We even got married, didn't we?
What? John's delusional behavior made me sick. Realizing this was going nowhere, I decided to bring it up with the department head. I told the department head part of what was going on.
I see. I'd heard some rumors, but I didn't know it was all John spreading them.
Exactly.
You didn't do anything to lead him on, right?
No, I haven't even given him my personal contact info.
Alright, let's have a meeting after work today to discuss this.
Okay, so we all sat down to talk. I'll say it again, I never dated John, and I definitely didn't marry him.
What are you talking about, Emma? You were the one who asked me out first.
What?
You invited me to dinner and you always smiled when we talked. Look, John, smiling and being polite in conversation is just normal behavior in a professional setting. It would be strange to frown or avoid conversation with your boss. Why are you siding with her, sir?
In the end, John refused to listen to our side of the story, and it seemed like the department head just didn't want to deal with the trouble. So just deal with it between the two of you, he said before leaving the room.
Why do you keep turning me down, Emma?
It's obvious we're not dating.
You're a traitor. You were the one who proposed marriage to me.
What? I'm calling the police.
Are you even aware of what you're saying? Do you realize how crazy you sound?
John grabbed me by the collar and was about to hit me. In that moment,
Hey, don't you understand that she doesn't want you around? Stop stalking her. What did you say? Do you want to die?
John attacked Peter, but quickly my fiancé Peter, who knew mixed martial arts, intervened. He stopped John with ease.
If you keep bothering Emma, I'll beat you up and call the police. Damn it, you'll pay for this.
John fled in a panic. Peter helped me, and I felt safe for the first time. Thank you, Peter. That was really scary.
No problem. I'm just glad you're safe.
I was very grateful to Peter for rescuing me. I apologized for the trouble I caused. Thank you for your support. I'm sorry things got so messy.
No, I'm sorry for not addressing this issue sooner. I should have acted more promptly. John was put on suspension.
Thank you for your support, even for a short time. I left the company and moved in with Peter. We relocated to a place far from my former workplace to avoid any further issues with John. It was supposed to be a fresh start, free from any more harassment. Hi, I'm home.
Welcome back. Jael will be bringing her husband soon.
Oh, Jael is getting married. It still doesn't feel real. And this day, my sister Jael came home to announce her engagement. I decided to visit my parents as well.
Jael's getting married, and now Emma's going to be a mom too. So many happy events.
Yes, it's been fast.
And by the way, I heard you left your job you joined recently. Oh, was something wrong?
Well, it's a long story. I didn't want to worry you, and I thought everything was resolved when I married Peter.
Hi, I'm Jael's fiancé, Josh.
I'm Jael's sister, Emma.
Nice to meet you. Oh, you're Josh. You're younger than I expected.
Don't be too nervous. Everything's going to be fine.
Despite the happy occasion, Josh looked worried. Then, when will be your wedding?
Well, we cannot decide alone about this.
What do you mean?
You didn't know? Emma is pregnant now. We have to coordinate the wedding so that it doesn't overlap with her due date.
Oh, I didn't know that.
What happened, Josh?
Josh seemed so nervous after hearing that I am pregnant.
Well, you know, I like kids. I'm excited about having children in the future too.
What happened to you, Emma, staring at Josh's face?
Do I have something on my face?
Nothing.
Hey, what's wrong with you guys? Josh, why are you so tense? Relax a bit.
Even I had a bad feeling when I saw Josh's face. He looked so much like that person.
I'm nervous.
Let's make this a joyful wedding, okay? After all, we made it just in time for Emma's delivery.
The day for Jael's wedding had arrived. While my mother and Jael were beaming with joy, I was filled with anxiety due to certain circumstances. I need to use the restroom. I got up, supporting my heavy belly, and headed to the restroom.
Hello?
Yes, who is this?
Or have you forgotten the name of the man you betrayed?
What?
You and your unborn child should just disappear.
You con artist.
Suddenly, I was pushed from behind and I almost fell down the stairs. I barely managed to grab the handrail and avoid falling. I quickly turned around, and standing there was the mother of Jael's groom.
You've trampled on Josh's feelings and you won't get away with it.
She tried to hit me again.
What do you think you're doing?
Peter heard the commotion and restrained her. The culprit was John's mother.
Let me go, you scum!
Emma, are you okay?
Yeah, somehow.
Damn you, you con artist. I hope you rot in hell.
And there he was, John.
So you're still alive, you piece of trash. I see you trying to cover your tracks by getting my dumb brother and your ugly sister together. But you went behind my back and got knocked up by some other guy. I'll at least make sure that bastard's kid doesn't survive.
He picked up a nearby ashtray and tried to hit me. Stop! Right at that moment,
Hey, stop!
Peter grabbed John's right hand, twisted it, and pinned him down. And so the wedding descended into chaos. The ceremony was, of course, cancelled, and an emergency meeting was held in the waiting room. In the meeting room were John and his mother. Josh, John's brother, looked pale and on the verge of tears. John and his mother, their faces red with anger, glared at us.
I'm so sorry, really.
Just as Josh was about to apologize, John slammed his fist on the table.
What are you apologizing for? The one at fault here is that woman. Sorry, brother. You were supposed to have my child, but you betrayed me and had some other guy's kid.
That's right. You promised to marry John and now you're trying to pretend it never happened? And who do you end up with? Some thug like this?
She glared at Peter. Despite his combat training and imposing appearance, Peter was just a regular office worker.
I was ready to accept you as my wife and even introduce you to my mom. But you tricked not just me, but my whole family.
Exactly. You toy with our feelings and you don't even feel guilty about it?
Yeah, that's right. That's why my mom tried to kill your child with a thug, using my brother to approach to your ugly sister.
Josh, you must have done better, like knocking out this thug.
Ugh.
Putting it simply, John tried to mate his brother and my sister to approach me. He was planning to propose to me again, but knowing that I am pregnant with Peter, he got so angry. He was planning to revenge to me together with our child. His mother also tried to help his crazy plan.
Anyway, this marriage cheater woman is all wrong. Have you ever thought about Emma's feeling? Enough already. You're the one committing marriage fraud. Jael was genuinely looking forward to today's wedding. I may have done something wrong, but it's all her fault.
Yes, that's right. Just as John said. The punishment for having a sister like that is just.
And what you did is a clear case of attempted murder. You tried to kill me along with my baby. What's so funny about that?
Where's the evidence of attempted murder?
What?
Let me remind you, no one saw this happen.
Well, the incident happened just before the guest reception started. Almost no one was at the venue except for close relatives from both families.
And look at this.
There was a wound caused when Peter pushed him down.
See the bruises from when this thug restrained me? The evidence of us trying to kill you is absent, but the evidence of him injuring me remains. If the police sees this, they'll believe our side.
Well then, I'll call the police right away.
No, Peter was protecting me.
Calm down. Now that you know what kind of person this thug really is, just be silent and become my wife. It's better for you too.
You can leave the baby at a nearby facility. It's better than being the child of a criminal. Don't get involved with him again.
John and his mother looked like they had won.
I have proof.
By the way, she said she'd apologize to the venue staff, but she disappeared. Sister!
If you have evidence, then let's see it.
Actually, I asked a junior colleague to record the event. He left the camera recording by mistake.
What?
Yes, John's face turned pale instantly.
Look at this camera. It shows the moment this stalker tried to kill my dear sister.
I looked at the camera screen. It clearly shows John's mother pushing me. Thank you. This is solid evidence. I thanked Jael and then looked at John. The smug look was gone. Now John and his mother were covered in grime and looked like they were about to cry. You said you were going to call the police. Are you not going to?
Well, no.
I will divorce Josh and also demand the wedding expenses and compensation. If you don't like that, I'll call the police immediately and show them the evidence.
Sister, you're so kind. I will report to the police. In addition, we can demand the wedding expenses and compensation.
Please, stop that.
If you don't like that, I'll call the police immediately and show them the evidence.
You're so kind. Actually, we already called the police, you see?
What? Why are we only being dragged into this?
John and his mother were taken away by the police. Later, John lost his job, and they tried to rely on Josh, who they had used as a pawn.
Go away. You can't listen to your brother? You have been using me since childhood. You had always forced me to obey because you were strong and violent. Mom didn't stop him. I will never listen to both of you.
Are you abandoning your own mother?
You pretend to be a good person. Shut up, I'm calling the police.
Josh had always been under his mother and John's control, but he cut ties after this incident. Though John and his mother never apologized, Josh later came to the family home, shaved bald, and tearfully apologized. I won't forgive him, but I hope he will be reformed and live a good life from now on.
You ate my share and now I'm hungry from working. Why don't you pay for the meal?
You cannot respect your mother, you foolish son.
Hello, I am Aunt Jael. I was able to give birth to a healthy baby girl without any impact from the incident. My sister was initially troubled by the betrayal, but seeing the baby made her happy again. I hope my sister finds someone like Peter someday.
For 3 years, my husband and in-laws ignored me. When I silently left after reaching my limit, my husband bombarded me with over 100 calls, which I completely ignored.
My aunt set me up on a blind date. At the meeting, my future in-laws Jason and Susan were very pushy, creating an atmosphere where I couldn't really say no to the marriage. I told myself that if I didn't go through with this, I might never get married, so I reluctantly agreed. But that was just the beginning of all my troubles.
On the first day at my in-laws' house, they completely ignored me. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but no matter what I asked, they wouldn't respond or even look at me. They acted like I didn't exist. I was so miserable that I told my husband I wanted a divorce, but he just stayed silent. I became thinner and more mentally exhausted every day. After 3 years of this, I finally reached my breaking point and decided to take revenge. I left the house without saying a word. My husband called me repeatedly, but I ignored every call. My name is Ann Collins, and I'm 27 years old. I work as an office clerk for a small business. I had been thinking vaguely about finding a boyfriend and getting married when this opportunity unexpectedly came my way.
And one of my regular customers has a son around your age. When I mentioned you, they suggested a blind date. What do you think?
My aunt runs a high-end jewelry brand, and the shop only attracts wealthy clients. So I figured that if her customer's son was interested, he must be a decent guy.
What do you think? Just meeting him won't hurt, right?
I wasn't particularly excited about it, but I felt like I couldn't say no for my aunt's sake. All right, I'll meet him. So the meeting was set up, and we had a dinner with both our parents.
Anne, you're such a lovely girl. It's amazing that someone like you would marry our son.
That's right, son. You won't find another girl like her, so make sure to impress her today.
My future in-laws kept praising me, making me feel pretty good about the whole thing. But my fiancé Mike barely said a word. The only thing he asked was about my favorite food.
What's your favorite food? I like those cookies from the department store.
Oh, those are good. I think I like chocolate. That was the end of our conversation. He didn't try to keep the conversation going. Maybe he was just nervous. I tried to be understanding, and I found that side of him kind of endearing. Near the end of the meal, they asked me a question.
So, Anne, what do you think of our son?
Well, we haven't talked much yet, but he seems like a diligent person.
Well, that's settled then. Let's go ahead with the wedding.
That's a great idea. Both of you are at the right age. If you miss this chance, you might not get another.
My parents and I were completely swept up by their words. I was a bit confused, but I didn't dislike Mike, so I thought maybe I should just go along with it. By the end of the evening, our marriage was practically decided, and we planned to file the paperwork the following week. On the way home, my parents asked if I was okay, but by then, it was too late to back out. I told them I was fine and that Mike seemed like a good person. Plus, I didn't want to worry them since my aunt had set this up. I tried to stay positive, thinking it was fate. The day we were supposed to file the marriage paperwork arrived quickly, and I went to my in-laws' house.
Welcome, Anne. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to being part of the family. Since we hadn't bought a house yet, it was decided that I would live with my in-laws until we saved enough money. I greeted Susan and handed her a gift for my family. This is for my mother.
Oh, thank you.
She took the gift, opened it, and immediately her tone changed. I could tell she wasn't pleased. I started to worry that I had bought something she didn't like. Mike then showed me around the house, and we eventually moved into the living room.
Welcome, Anne. Let's get the paperwork signed.
After we filed the marriage papers, my in-laws suddenly turned cold. We're officially married now. I'm looking forward to our life together.
Yeah, well, at least we don't have to worry about our son being single anymore.
I tried to be cheerful and told them I would do my best as Mike's wife. But they acted like I wasn't even there. Mike looked shocked by their sudden change in attitude, but then Susan called him into another room. When he came back, he was as cold as they were. Did something happen? I asked, but no one would answer or even look at me. I was confused by their behavior. I spent the rest of the day in the uncomfortable living room. When it was time for dinner, Susan only set the table for 3. Jason, Mike, are we going to eat? My name wasn't even mentioned and I didn't know what to do. I ended up sitting on the floor in a corner of the living room. After everyone went to their rooms or the bathroom, I snuck out to a nearby supermarket and ate dinner at the eat-in area. Why are they treating me like this? What did I do wrong? I didn't understand anything and I cried while eating. This went on for weeks. I couldn't figure out why they were ignoring me, and it became harder and harder to stay in that house. I tried talking to them multiple times. Why are you ignoring me? Did I do something wrong? But no matter who I asked, they wouldn't respond. I thought about going back to my parents, but I didn't want to worry them since we had only been married for a month. I didn't want to be a burden. My aunt, who had introduced us, asked how I was doing once, but I lied and said everything was fine. I told myself I would stick it out for a year and then get a divorce. I tried harder to connect with my in-laws. I eavesdropped on conversations to find out what they liked and bought those things for them. On my way home from work, I bought some things from the department store. Maybe this will help them see me in a better light, but they still ignored me. The things I bought for them remained untouched. Every attempt I made to reach out was met with silence. It was exhausting, and I felt my spirit being crushed every time I tried. After a year of enduring this, I handed Mike the divorce papers. I can't do this anymore. Let's get a divorce. My hands were shaking, but I pushed the papers towards him, expecting to be ignored. But Mike took the papers and tore them up without saying a word. Then he threw them in the trash. Why? I asked, but he just walked away. I cried as I looked at the torn papers in the trash. Not only was I ignored, but now I couldn't even escape through divorce. I felt trapped, like I would have to spend my whole life in that suffocating house. What am I doing wrong? All my efforts felt meaningless, and I cried through the night. After 3 years of this miserable life, I had become numb to the pain. I no longer cried because it had become the norm. I had started waking up early and avoiding everyone just to get through the day. But one morning, I ran into Susan in the bathroom, and she glared at me and clicked her tongue. That was the final straw. I can't do this anymore, I whispered to myself in the empty bathroom. I went back to my room, packed my things, and left the house without a word. As I left, I looked back at the house and said goodbye. I had finally reached my limit and escaped. I knew I would never go back to that house. When I got home, my parents were shocked to see me with so much luggage early in the morning. I'm sorry for showing up without any warning. I feel bad for my aunt too. I broke down in tears as I explained everything. My parents cried with me and asked why I hadn't come home sooner. I didn't want to worry you or be a burden. My parents lovingly scolded me. They told me that trying to handle everything on my own was more of a burden than asking for help. The words made me realize how much they cared, and I cried even more. Thank you. I've been holding everything in, but from now on, I'll speak up. My parents stayed with me until I calmed down. Once I was settled, they asked how I wanted to handle Mike and his parents. I didn't know what to do because I still didn't understand why they had been ignoring me. Just then, my aunt showed up.
I brought you some food, Anne. Oh, it's been a while since I last saw you.
When I saw my aunt, I thought maybe she knew something. Aunt Mary, I need to tell you something. I explained everything that had been happening at Mike's house. My aunt was shocked and covered her mouth in disbelief. Do you have any idea why this is happening? My aunt lowered her head as if she knew something. Please, if you know anything, tell me.
I think I do.
She told me everything she suspected and then apologized.
I'm sorry. If I had thought things through more, this wouldn't have happened.
It's not your fault, Aunt Mary. I'm just glad to know why they treated me that way. I wanted to end the conversation there, but my aunt had another idea.
We can't just leave it like this. I want to help you get back at them.
What? My aunt laid out a plan to get revenge. I wanted to refuse because it would put her at risk, but she insisted.
I can't stand by while you're hurting, Anne. Let me help you.
Are you sure? With my aunt's help, I decided to get revenge on my in-laws. A few days after I left the house, Mike and his parents finally started to take action. They began calling me over and over again. Aunt Mary must have set the plan in motion. I knew they had fallen into our trap and felt a sense of satisfaction as I ignored their calls. The phone didn't stop ringing for hours. Eventually, the calls exceeded 100. How long are they going to keep this up? I got tired of hearing the phone ring, so I turned it off. Let's see what they do next. It didn't take long for them to show up at my parents' house. They rang the doorbell repeatedly. Wow, they're fast. I watched them through the intercom. They looked anxious.
If you're here to apologize, it's too late.
I nodded in agreement with my parents. Then we turned off the doorbell and watched them from the balcony. They stood outside even as it got dark. It was creepy, and I worried that the neighbors might get scared, so I reluctantly went outside. What do you want? As soon as they saw me, they rushed over, complaining about how I hadn't answered the phone.
Why didn't you answer the phone?
We've been waiting for hours.
I regretted coming out to hear them complain. If you have nothing else to say, please leave. I tried to close the door, but Mike stopped me.
Wait, that's not why we're here. That's right.
Listen, we want you to come back.
Why should I come back? So you can keep ignoring me?
No, we didn't ignore you. Maybe you misheard us.
Yeah, you're overreacting.
Their excuses were pathetic, so I decided to confront them directly. Are you just trying to get back in my good graces because of the jewelry my aunt makes? Their shoulders stiffened, but Mike quickly denied it.
No, that's not it. We just got worried when you left.
So you're not interested in the jewelry?
Well,
I knew it. They were just trying to use me to get free jewelry. What did my aunt say to you? They fell silent again, confirming my suspicions. My aunt told me that if I married you, Mike, she might give you some jewelry as a gift. But now that I've left, you're worried you won't get anything, right? They all looked away, avoiding eye contact. My aunt had explained everything to me earlier.
When I first mentioned the blind date, Mike's mom says something like, if Mike and Anne get married, we'll be relatives, so maybe I can get some of your jewelry for free. I was caught off guard and didn't know how to respond, so I just said we'd see what happens.
Now it all made sense. My aunt's jewelry is incredibly expensive, and Mike's mom couldn't afford it, so when the marriage was arranged, she thought it was her chance to get something for free. It also explained why my in-laws were so pushy about the marriage. They just wanted me to sign the papers so they could get what they wanted. When I didn't bring any jewelry to the house, they must have been furious. That's why they started ignoring me. After hearing my aunt's explanation, everything clicked. So you ignored me for 3 years over something so petty? They stayed silent, which was as good as an admission. Silence means you agree, right? They still didn't say anything. While I was confronting them, my aunt arrived.
Anne, are you okay?
My in-laws turned to look at my aunt.
I came as soon as I got your mom's message. I heard you've been mistreating Anne. Is that true?
No, it's a misunderstanding.
When I called yesterday, you said Anne was happily eating dinner with you. Was that a lie?
Susan couldn't come up with a good excuse.
I'm sorry, but please don't take away the jewelry.
The jewelry offer was just a trap to get you here.
What?
You tricked us?
They looked stunned. My aunt had come up with a bold plan.
I'll tell them that if you and Mike made it to your 5th anniversary, I'll give you some jewelry. That will make them desperate to get Anne back. When they show up, I'll tell them off and make sure they leave you alone.
My aunt's plan worked perfectly.
I won't forgive you for hurting Anne. First, you need to apologize to her. Then you need to agree to a divorce and never come near Anne or my store again.
But I love your jewelry. Please don't ban me from the store.
My mom is really a big fan of your work. Please, don't ban her. If you ban us, it could hurt your business. Are you sure you want that? Yes, Anne's well-being is more important than my business.
Hearing that my aunt valued me more than her store made me feel so loved. My in-laws realized they had no choice but to apologize.
Anne, I'm so sorry. We were wrong to treat you that way.
I'm sorry too.
But while they were apologizing, I noticed they kept glancing at my aunt to see her reaction. It was clear they were more concerned with getting back into her good graces than making things right with me. I can't forgive you. You care more about my aunt than about me. You have no idea how much I suffered. You made me cry every day, wondering what I had done wrong. And now, you think a simple apology will make it all better? My aunt nodded in agreement.
Aunt's right. Stay away from us and my store.
My aunt banned them from her store and made sure the divorce went through. After they left, I hugged my aunt and thanked her over and over. Thank you so much, Aunt Mary. I'm so grateful for everything you've done.
Don't thank me. I'm the one who should apologize for setting up that awful marriage.
My aunt had been feeling guilty about the whole situation. But now that it was over, we both felt relieved. We decided to put the past behind us. A few days later, the divorce was finalized. I got back all the money I had spent on living expenses. When Mike's family sent the divorce papers, they also included a letter begging my aunt to lift the ban. I tore it up and threw it away. I couldn't believe I had been tricked into marrying them. I promised myself that if something like this ever happened again, I would stand up for myself. After our divorce, Mike's family kept trying to get into my aunt's store, even after being banned. They were such a nuisance that they were eventually arrested for trying to steal jewelry. The news spread quickly, and now they can't even show their faces in public. Their once close-knit family is falling apart, and I think it's their own fault. Now, I'm living a peaceful life, far away from all that chaos. Inspired by my aunt, I've started learning how to make jewelry. I'm still a beginner, but I believe that if I keep working hard, I'll succeed someday.
I was working late and came home late at night. My husband's stepdaughter dragged me into the closet and said, "Shush."
My name is Nia. I live with my husband Jack and our daughter Sarah, in total 3 people. My daughter is the child of my husband from a previous relationship, so I am her stepmother. Jack and I got married 5 years ago when my daughter was 5 years old. When I was in my 20s, I developed a condition that made it impossible for me to have children. Until then, I had dreamed of marrying and having kids. However, when I was told by my then boyfriend's mother that I should give up on marriage due to my condition, and my boyfriend, who was under his mother's influence, also gave up on me, I was left feeling hopeless. My desire for marriage seemed to vanish entirely. That's when I met Jack and my daughter. My daughter, who was 4 at the time, had gotten lost and was crying. I helped her get to the police station, which was like something out of an old drama, and that's how we met. Our relationship naturally developed into a romance, then a marriage, and we became a family. My daughter surprisingly started calling me Mom early on, and we became a family much more smoothly than I had imagined. I still remember the warm feelings that began to resurface the moment I held her hand at the police station that day. After we married, Jack remained as kind as ever. They saved me from my loneliness, and I truly feel like my daughter is my real child, and I'm delighted to watch her grow. However, Jack's mother did not look favorably upon our family. When I first met her, I could tell she was sizing me up from head to toe. Then she said to think someone would want to marry a woman with a child. Is she after my son's money? I had braced myself to some conflict with my mother-in-law, but I was shocked when she said such things to me upon our first meeting. I was so stunned that I couldn't respond. However, Jack, who was beside me, was furious at his mother's remarks. He grabbed my hand, ignored his mother, who was chasing us, and quickly drove me away in the car.
I'm sorry, she's insane. I don't want her to be involved with you any more than necessary. You don't have to deal with her.
I still remember Jack's face from that moment. Thanks to his strong protection, we had no contact with my mother-in-law after our marriage introduction. But 2 years ago, when my father-in-law fell ill and had to be hospitalized, we had more opportunities to see my mother-in-law. She seemed quite worn out, and her previous intensity had faded, and she was more calm towards me. I vaguely hoped that our relationship would improve. However, at my father-in-law's funeral last year, my mother-in-law made a remark that made Jack's anger reach its peak.
Now I can live with my son. After that, I'll kick out that wife and get a new one who can give me a grandson. I don't need anything else as long as I have my son.
As relatives cried over their loss, my mother-in-law laughed and said this. It was clear to everyone there that her words were filled with malice and that she was relishing the death of my father-in-law and her hatred toward me. Everyone stared at her in shock as Jack stood up, spoke in a low voice, and pulled her by the collar, dragging her away. When we reached the entrance, Jack roughly threw her out.
What are you doing?
If I'm here, you don't need anything else. Damn it, I don't need you at all. I'll handle the arrangements and divorce you from Dad. You can either be thrown out with nothing in front of everyone or stay away from me and Nia. Choose.
My mother-in-law, with tears in her eyes, looked around for help, but everyone looked at her with disdain. Although my father-in-law was kind, my mother-in-law had previously said things like stepmothers are so unbecoming and it's disgusting to act like a mother when you didn't even give birth to them. Just that was enough to cause significant emotional damage, but what hurt even more was that she truly wanted a grandson. The words the ex-wife was useless and went to the afterlife. Now he brought in a new wife who can't have children. I don't need a woman like that. Was there no one else who could bear a child? Hurt me more than any sarcasm. It wasn't just me, it was a denial of my daughter's very identity. I couldn't stop crying thinking about how someone could say such things so easily. But at that moment I couldn't tell Jack, and of course I couldn't tell my daughter. So I endured it all by myself. However, thanks to my mother-in-law's self-destruction in front of Jack, her past wrongdoings came to light. After the funeral, she begged Jack for forgiveness many times, but Jack did not forgive her, and never opened the door when she came to visit. Thanks to Jack's stern attitude, my mother-in-law gradually became quieter and stopped contacting us. Our daughter turned 10 and became busy with extracurricular activities and cram school. In response, I took the employee exam at my part-time job and passed, starting work as a full-time employee. But someone who threatened our happiness appeared. That person's name was Daisy, a childhood friend of Jack. Daisy had divorced and returned near the in-laws' house and suddenly contacted Jack. Although Daisy seemed to want to see Jack, he held his phone with a skeptical expression showing his refusal. According to Jack, Daisy is known for her strong sense of justice. While a strong sense of justice sounds good, in her case, she has a tendency to impose her values on others, believing that if people just talk things out, they'll understand. She's caused various problems in the past because of this. For example, a classmate who had suffered greatly from her mother and her mother's partner and had finally left home from a distant school was contacted by Daisy, who insisted that it was wrong to avoid one's parents, even if they were disliked. She would meddle, revealing the person's location to their mother. There was also an incident where she contacted a friend who had fled from her abusive husband, saying it's a shame to make the children stay with the father. Your husband is just clumsy. You should be able to work it out if you talk. Daisy even stole the friend's phone number and contacted the husband's family, causing a huge mess. Jack himself had been affected when trying to distance himself from a friend who had betrayed him. Daisy had insisted, "Why do such a thing? You're friends. You need to learn to forgive. Leave it to me," and contacted the friend on her own, making things worse. As a result, Daisy had been cut off from everyone she had been involved with. What was terrifying was that she was unaware of this and even thought she was doing something good. Sometimes there are people like that. Even if there are various reasons for keeping a distance from family, she believed that family should have unconditional love. She imposed her values on others, thinking only she is right. If I use a cute word, it would be idealistic, but it's really not cute at all. Honestly, she's the type of person I don't want to deal with.
She probably told my mother whatever suited her narrative. Since she hasn't been in touch with relatives since the funeral, it's likely that Daisy is being used as a sounding board for her grievances. She probably says that you've done terrible things to her. Daisy wanting to see me is just her attempt to reconcile me with my mother.
I thought the same thing. Just hearing about her was enough to feel exhausted. She's such an energetic person that I'm sure some kind of turmoil will happen soon. I felt an immense unease about this person I had never met, and that unease turned out to be well-founded. One day, Daisy suddenly came to our house and said, "Mom has collapsed. Come right now." When I hesitated, she forced me to go with her. Left behind, my daughter and I were just bewildered. But as I settled down, I became increasingly annoyed by how she had barged into our home without greeting and avoided making eye contact with me. However, thinking that something might have actually happened to my mother-in-law, I decided to wait for Jack's call. 2 hours later, Jack returned, looking exhausted, and with an indescribable expression on his face. What happened? Did Mom really collapse? When I asked, Jack shook his head and sighed heavily. Seeing Jack's reaction, I sighed as well, thinking I knew it. I was told that if there was a misunderstanding, it would be better to discuss it. That part was okay, but then Jack said that Daisy's story was that she wanted me to break up with my daughter. In the meantime, my mother-in-law was pretending to be weak and kind, crying while worrying about her son and granddaughter. Seems like you've ended up exactly as you said.
I'm fed up with her off-target lectures and my mother's pathetic acting. Even if she lied about collapsing, I have to deal with it because otherwise I wouldn't be able to come to the house. She even gave her our address, and she cried about not knowing what Daisy might do.
Jack looked at me with a pained expression.
They are so foolish and...
As he hesitated to speak, I guessed.
She wants me to break up with you and be with someone else.
When Jack averted his gaze, my intuition told me that I was right. And did she tell you to marry Daisy? The way he looked down made me sure that I am not wrong. Daisy had divorced and returned, right? How about children?
She seems to have a child, but her ex-husband took custody. It looks like they're dreaming of us getting remarried and living together with a child.
Are you kidding?
She knows our address now. Should we move? I know you've worked hard to become a full-time employee, but the thought of what you're suggesting weighs heavily on my heart.
He's trying to protect me and our daughter. Compared to dealing with those people, the difficulty of commuting is nothing. Even if I have to quit my job, our family's safety is the most important thing. I'll follow you as far as you'll go. I squeezed Jack's hand and nodded slowly. A few days later, a minor trouble occurred at work and I had to stay late. I emailed Jack, but on such a day, he was also staying late. I was worried about leaving our daughter alone and rushed to resolve the issue. Our daughter texted that she was fine and would lock the door and go to bed. Even so, I was worried and frustrated by the slow progress of the task. The trouble was eventually resolved, but it was past 11 p.m. I received a message from my daughter that she was going to bed, so I hurried home. When I got there, I quietly inserted the key into the lock and found the door open. I wondered if Jack had come home early, or if our daughter had forgotten to lock the door. As I entered quietly, I was about to call out when suddenly my right arm was yanked. I was dragged into a room closet next to the entrance. Shocked, I felt like my heart was stopped from fear. As I tried to resist, my mouth was suddenly covered. Shh! I looked back fearfully and realized it was my daughter covering my mouth. Confused, I stared wide-eyed as she whispered, "Don't make a sound." She then gently pushed the closet door open a few centimeters and looked at me. I guided my daughter to the living room. There, my mother-in-law and Daisy were sitting and talking about something. What are they doing here? Why did they come in without permission? How long have they been here?
I heard their voices and knew it wasn't Mom and Dad. I was scared, so I hid in the closet.
My daughter knew that my mother-in-law disliked her, so she must have sensed something instinctively. Gripping my daughter's hand, I felt it was sweaty and clammy from fear.
What are they doing at this hour? It looks like they're not even here. Are they traveling or something? Maybe it's a weekday. I bet they're out with that awful wife, making a fuss even with a child in tow. It's terrible, isn't it? It's outrageous. But knowing that woman, she'd do something like this. I feel sorry for my son. Why did he get involved with such a woman? But it's actually good. I can use this as an excuse to kick that stupid wife out. And we can make her take the granddaughter too. That way I can make my son remarry and finally get the male grandchild I've always wanted. The child is a toddler, so it's perfect. How exciting. I will cherish you as my real mother, Mom.
I was horrified as I listened to Daisy and my mother-in-law's conversation. I thought about confronting them right then and there, but I didn't want to leave my trembling daughter alone. Knowing they could do anything to put my daughter, I stayed put. I received a text from Jack saying he was downstairs. I was glad I had kept my phone on silent. I texted Jack to come to the first room without making noise. He asked,
Is something wrong?
I just texted, "Come quickly." Jack quickly returned home. My daughter and I held hands and waited for him. A few minutes later, I recognized Jack's face peeking through the slightly open door. Sarah started to cry seeing his face without making sounds. I placed a finger over my lips and gestures for silence and pointed out a living room.
They haven't come back yet. Maybe next time. I thought it would be more impactful to come at night, but it's okay. There's always another way to make them leave. We could show this to our son and he'll lose interest. Then he'll be comforted by you and love will blossom.
My mother-in-law waved her hand dramatically.
Recent reproductions are so well done. You can't even tell unless you look closely. I'm excited to live with you and my son, but this time it's our turn. But what if the wife is actually cheating?
As the two of them laughed, Jack stood up suddenly. Just then a vase in the entrance crashed loudly.
What was that? I'll go check.
When Daisy tried to go to the entrance, the lights suddenly went out, plunging the room into darkness.
What's going on?
In the dark, Jack barged in and shouted.
What are you doing here?
The two of them screamed at the loud voice.
Mom! I heard a child's voice.
The sudden appearance of Jack and the sound of my daughter's voice made the two of them panic even more. A sudden thunderclap made them scream even louder. Seeing my daughter's anxious face, a wave of anger surged through me towards my mother-in-law and Daisy. They had intruded into our home, done whatever they pleased, and frightened my daughter. I stood up and slowly opened the sliding door. The two of them, still in panic, did not seem to recognize me in the dark. I will never forgive this. You've hurt my precious family and my daughter. I will not forgive you.
Nia?
The two of them cowered in fear as I approached, finally collapsing to the floor. I will never forgive you, I shouted as I illuminated my face with a flashlight. At that moment, a lightning bolt struck with a perfect timing.
Nia, please, forgive us.
The two of them, crying, crawled out of the room. When Jack turned on the light switch, the room lit up brightly.
They've left, right?
Yes. Jack is looking at me. I turned off the flashlight.
They seemed terrified. Maybe they thought you were a ghost or something.
Probably. I must have looked like a long-haired ghost in the dark, and hearing a child's voice from an empty room would add to the horror.
Mom, I was so scared.
I hugged my daughter tightly. I'm sorry for scaring you. It's okay now. Seeing our daughter's condition, Jack had tears in his eyes and repeatedly apologized. My mother-in-law and Daisy had planned to present fake evidence of infidelity to get me thrown out. They intended to visit during the night, when the whole family was home, show the supposed evidence to Jack, and make him furious enough to divorce me. They had hoped to throw me out and have Daisy and her daughter move in with Jack instead. Daisy had even brought copies of a fake photo and a forged investigation report. But we're not easily fooled by such absurd schemes. They underestimated our family. Daisy had planned to take her son after kicking me out, but her ex-husband firmly refused. The child didn't want to go to Daisy's place either. It seems she was divorced because she was having an affair. Daisy was also a troublemaker who had ruined her relationships with everyone, including her ex-husband and his family. Jack had once said that Daisy was doing bad things, thinking she was doing good things, but I felt from the start that his judgment was wrong. Daisy's fierce determination to take Jack from me was clear in her intense gaze. Even knowing I was present, she avoided looking at me, and I instantly sensed her ill will. Her actions were not driven by justice or kindness. She seemed to enjoy breaking relationships. When I heard about the divorce reason, I wasn't surprised at all. Daisy is now barred from even seeing her son once a month. Her dream of living with her son in a new place was shattered. I feel no sympathy. It's all her own doing. My mother-in-law has not visited since that night. She hasn't contacted us either. The neighbors say she believes Jack's former wife has come back as a ghost, haunting them. They've even put up talismans at the entrance, saying our family is cursed. They've been buying things like jars and charms, and on weekends the sounds of chanting sutras can be heard from several houses away. The neighbors have said they're troubled by it. If she wants to keep thinking that, let her. Although I've only seen his previous wife in photos, we look quite different, but have similar builds. Given my mother-in-law's extreme fear, I'm sure his previous wife must have had trouble with her as well. My mother-in-law's involvement with suspicious groups led us to decide to move and start preparing. As we were finishing packing and getting ready for the move tomorrow, Daisy showed up with a loud ringing of the doorbell.
You've ruined my life. I can't even see my son, whom I gave birth to with great pain. Why are you so comfortable as a stepmother? As Daisy raged, her hair disheveled, I blocked her way. According to your own theory, if families can understand each other through discussion, why can't you talk things out with your ex-husband and his parents? If you can't even meet your child, what does that mean? Daisy turned her face red. Why don't you use your so-called sense of justice to fix your own relationships? You've claimed to make many people happy with your kindness, haven't you? What are you saying? Yes, family is absolute.
But you taking my husband and living with your son, that's not right. Your son isn't really his child, is he? Isn't that a contradiction? Your expression of justice is meaningless.
I know Jack from when he was a child. Our families are close. You're just a stranger to us.
But your familiar Jack doesn't like you. Despite being a stepmother, I'm not like you. I don't impose on neighbors and play with men. I've always been ready to be a mother to my daughter from the moment I married Jack, and that hasn't changed. I would protect my daughter as if entrusted by his former wife. No matter what anyone says, she's my daughter. Daisy's face was red and trembling, and my daughter, frightened, clung to my shirt.
Get out. Do you want me to report you for trespassing? I was considering overlooking it for the sake of your young son, but since you've been cut off, it's irrelevant now. Leave immediately or I'll call the police."
When Jack said this, Daisy's eyes filled with tears, and she looked up at Jack.
Why are you saying this? I've always loved you. Even now, I'm in love with you.
Daisy's insincere words made me involuntarily mutter. Even if those feelings are real, what are you trying to achieve now? Jack laughed in disbelief, so Daisy couldn't step back due to embarrassment.
Why are you laughing? My ex-husband and the neighbors misunderstood me. I'm a very kind person who wants to help others. You're being deceived by this woman. If you marry me, I will take care of both you and your daughter. I'll also be kind to your mother and treat you all like a real family.
Jack dryly laughing, then sighing in exasperation.
"I'd rather not receive anything if it's like this. I refuse. It's clear you just want to escape your debts and find a new partner to make life easier. Enough. I'm really going to call the police."
Daisy, exhausted and enraged, glared at Jack.
How could you misunderstand me too? I'm a good person.
Daisy started crying in earnest. To protect our daughter, Jack and I stood close together. People don't usually need to declare they're good or kind. Others decide that for them. Instead of making ridiculous accusations, why don't you face yourself?
"No, let's call the police."
As Jack took out his phone, Daisy glared at us and fled. "I'm sorry you were scared. It's okay now." I patted my daughter's head, who clung to me tightly, and tears nearly came to my eyes.
Mom, I think of you as my real mom. How about you?
Of course I do. I'll never let you scared again. Tomorrow we'll start anew in a new place. We held each other's hands tightly, vowing to protect our happiness.